Well, welcome back to another episode of the Cruise Conversations podcast. I'm Michael.
And I'm Frank.
And today's episode is episode number 81, and we're sitting down with Frank's mom, Mary, to talk about some of her recent cruises. Let's jump into it.
Well, we're back, episode 81 after the holidays. We are blessed with my mom, Mary's presence today back on the podcast. It's been a while.
It has been a while. Been a busy year.
It's been good. And last time you guys saw Mom was the review of the Icon cruise back.
That's
I
correct.
think it's like
Yep.
May or June of this past year. So
Yeah.
welcome back. And
Thank
you've been
you.
doing a lot of cruising. So this episode's going to be pretty casual, just kind of reflecting on your experiences. You've gone on Celebrity for the first time. You and I went on Utopia, which is the newest Royal Caribbean ship that's currently sailing. Obviously got Star next year. And then your experience in Europe. Your first, well, I
Yes.
guess you and Dad's together first. European cruise, which was really nice. You were on Oasis of the Seas. You did 7 nights, and very similar itinerary to what you did, Michael. What was it, last year or 2 years ago? So
Yeah.
we'll kind of talk about that. And then you got a couple cruises planned for next year. So we'll go through just kind of your thoughts and how you're planning cruises, and we'll talk about those a little bit as well. But first, what do you want to start with? Do you want to start with, let's start with Celebrity. So Celebrity Reflection.
Yes.
What did you think of that? That was a 4-night cruise right out of Port Canaveral? Or no, that was Fort Lauderdale.
It was Fort Lauderdale, which that's the first time I've actually cruised out of Fort Lauderdale. So I love Celebrity. I mean, it's definitely as Royal states, it's their luxury step up from a royal ship. And it was a friend's 80th birthday, and we wanted to go celebrate him and just enjoy a quick little 4-day cruise. Reflection is not one of their newer Edge ships. It's a lovely ship. The staff was amazing. A completely different vibe than your Oasis or Symphony. It's very much different group of people. A little calmer, a little more relaxed, a little more of a chill vibe. Definitely not. If you're all into all the shows and entertainment, there's not a ton for sure. There's plenty though. I mean, there's music venues everywhere.
It's just not like the big shows, like the
Correct.
big, like
You don't have
Aqua
Wizard of
show.
Oz. You don't have the Aqua show. Definitely less smaller children.
But you guys like that. I mean, it was 80th birthday, so it was kind of
Right.
fitting.
Absolutely.
Are
So
are Michael and I too young for Celebrity?
I don't think so. I think Scotty would love it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to-
Again, it's just a different vibe. I mean, it's really hard to take the two side by side, Royal and Celebrity, and do a complete comparison because they're just not apples to apples. You know, there's benefits of both, and you see, look at Royal. You see people Pinnacle class that are in their 80s and rolling in there on Icon, slammed with kids and families, and so it's just kind of what you're in the mood for that particular cruise. So for
Do you
me,
feel like the perks are better on Royal, like at the top tier, right? Because you get the free drinks. I don't think they include that on
no,
Celebrity.
they have some different tiers as far as your suite level too, like the veranda, and they also have
The retreat.
the retreat, which is where we stayed, which
That was nice because that included the drinks, right? So you kind of
It
pay
did.
for it in a way. Yeah.
And also, one of the things that Celebrity does is you have in the retreat section, you have a mini bar that's stocked with your, soft drinks and water, sparkling water, flat water, also beer, wine, and you have your own little butler that gives you his card, and basically he'll say, hey, if you run out of anything, if you need anything from your iPhone, from your any place on the ship just reach out to me and I'll be there and I'll pick up your cleaning, whatever you need. That was super, super nice. Of course, there's no Central Park, and
So, but you do have that area on the top, which is like, what is it? The
it's
lawn.
like an atrium kind of. Yeah, we do have that up top.
The Lawn Club.
The Lawn Club. That's kind of a restaurant, like
Yep.
a high-end burger, restaurant. That's open air, so kind of weather depending because it can get breezy and chilly out there. In fact, the night that we were supposed to eat there, we ended up not being able to because it was windy and doesn't have a lot of cover. But yeah, they have like a centrum area in the center of the ship that there's dancing and people listening to music, and they did silent disco out there. It's just a lot more kind of compact, so you don't have the openness of course, any of the Oasis class ships as on Royal. But for those that really miss the old days where all of the dining had beautiful, gorgeous views, you do have that on Celebrity because all of the restaurants offer these unbelievable floor to ceiling, windows of the ocean. So a lot of people really miss that. Well, of course, with Royal, you give that up, having Central Park and having the promenade. It pushes everything kind of out, and you don't have those beautiful
Yeah.
views in the specialty dining areas. So that's kind of a perk. Also, there are very few specialty dining venues on Celebrity because they're all you can choose to go to any of the restaurants. So that's very much different than Royal.
Well, I think that the big distinction there is like on your ship, there's like one main dining room, right? And then
Correct.
on like the newer Edge class, you've got 3 dining rooms. It's like a French, Italian.
We had that on our ship.
Oh, you
Reflection
did have
had
that. Okay.
several
Okay.
different restaurants. And then they also, for the retreat, had a special restaurant just for the retreat and also a special bar, which
Okay.
was pretty phenomenal. Like literally within the first day, walking in, Dad and I, they were addressing us by our name. So, and the guy's like, this is what we're trying to do. So it was just for the retreat
That's
guests.
nice. That's really
So,
nice.
again, it's really tough to go side by side and compare, say a symphony to a Celebrity Reflection because it's just a different ballpark altogether. So really enjoyed that. It was just the right amount of time. And of course now, Celebrity is stopping at Coco Cay. And so we got to enjoy Coco Cay. It was
Yeah.
very, very warm, but it was still fun.
Pretty much the same experience, right?
Yeah, same experience. I mean, it's nice. I mean, of course, it does make the island a bit more crowded, depending on what 2 ships are in. But yeah, it was super enjoyable.
I just have one quick question with Celebrity and kind of just the Reflection as a whole. I know the ship came out in 2012. How does the size of the ship? I know you said it doesn't really compare to like Oasis or Symphony, but looking at like Independence or Freedom, like that size of ship, is it larger than those, or does it feel comparable to those ships?
I would say pretty comparable. I mean, and actually the interior. I mean, I always say this to people, like just to your point of reference about independence and freedom. If you hop off a Utopia or a Wonder and Icon, it's just tough to go back, because it's just so fresh and new so I would say Reflection probably a little tired with some of the interior design and the bathrooms are dated. The outlets, that's always how you can tell the age of a ship. The outlets are not convenient. There's not bedside outlets now like they have on Wonder, and so definitely needs some refreshing. But as far as actual size, yeah, I would say that would be, in my opinion, fairly comparable to an Independence or Freedom.
All right, so let's move over to your Mediterranean cruise now. You took a 7-night cruise out of Rome and you hit up France and Spain. I think it was the same itinerary I did a couple years ago. How was this trip?
Yes, I do believe it was the same itinerary. It was amazing. I can't wait to plan our next adventure in Europe with a different itinerary. My husband, Frank, had not been, and he had not been to the Vatican. So we chose to front load our trip with 4 days prior to our cruise just to kind of explore Rome, go to the Vatican, and just go to Florence. We took the high speed train to Florence and did a little sightseeing before our cruise. I guess you could do it either way. I feel that's again the first time we did it, so I don't know how it would be coming off the ship and staying 4 days. I feel like by the time you get off the ship, you're ready to be done.
I think you did the right way. I think you
Yeah.
kind of like wanted to get there, and it gives you time to get adjusted to the time change a little bit too.
Absolutely. We got on the ship feeling so refreshed and we had an enjoyable 4 days. And so, we took a Uber to the port. Interesting little factoid that, I was not aware of.
Oops.
Yeah.
The travel agent let her down there.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It was just interesting. So we got an Uber driver from our Airbnb in Rome, and he was great and got to the port. But there was a little bit of a breakdown in communication and like, well, I can't take you to the port. And we were just like, huh?
Yeah.
What's up with that? So basically, Europe is very strict about the amount of vehicles they let through close to the port. Very strict. You can't get in there. So we really weren't even kind of understanding what he was referring to until we kind of got down there. And then he's like, yeah, I have to let you out here. And we're like,
You're like, the boat's away.
yeah, okay, that's a lot of luggage to schlep over to the boat.
But they had a bus or something. that you
Correct.
guys
So
hopped
then
in, yeah.
we got out of our Uber and went with one of their kind of certified approved vehicles to get into the port. So after knowing that, what we should have done is booked through Royal to get back out, like, to get
Yeah.
when we left. So for those that cruise all the time, if you're in Port Canaveral, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, there is no problem. You get off the ship and you go to the taxi line, the Uber
There's
line.
hundreds of
Yeah,
taxis just like waiting.
right. So, hindsight now, we would book through Royal and have our car waiting for us because after you get off in on return to Rome, which is we did a Rome to Barcelona and back, right? You have no ability to get a private car. It's
Yeah.
just impossible. So
Was it similar in Barcelona with like, getting a taxi into the town? Was it that like hard to get a ride, or was it still like,
no, you had to walk, I guess maybe a little bit further out of the
okay,
port. So there still is different security, I will say for sure.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
not like, getting off in the Bahamas, like you just walk off the ship.
right,
No,
right,
definitely a little more secure, a little longer walk to get out from the port
yeah,
area. So, but of course we didn't, we didn't board there. So I don't know how it was for those people. But again, I highly recommend just going ahead and booking your transportation in advance and not having to deal with that. It ended up perfectly fine. We shared like a little shuttle for six with another family and it worked out fine. But we were actually delayed a little bit. Luckily, we had plenty of time, but it took us a while to get that all arranged because you just can't. Number one, there's no service; you can't even
yeah,
find an Uber, and then unbeknownst to us, again, you they're not going to come and get you. So
yeah.
make your arrangements and get that all squared away so you don't have to deal with that.
They warned us too. I don't know if you had a warning in the room about that, but when we got to Athens, they did warn us that like it's just not there's not going to be a ton of taxis like there is in the Caribbean. So then we went and booked a shuttle. We were like, we'll
Yeah,
just do
yeah.
a shuttle through Royal, and they dropped us at the town center in Athens. But it's good to call out for people that are booking or looking at Europe for next year.
Right. And since it was our first time, cruising that way in Europe, we just didn't know and didn't put too much thought. There were so many other moving parts. So again, easy fix, just book it and then you don't have to worry about it. So we boarded in Rome, very easy, just like here, very, streamlined, got on. Again, interesting that, we boarded in Rome and then when you get to Barcelona, there are people finishing their cruise and then people coming on. So it's
Yeah,
a very interesting kind of concept, almost like a ferry, like a cruise ferry, where
right.
picking up people, dropping off people, picking up
Every
more
like
people.
3 days, people are either getting on or off, which is
Right.
interesting.
So it was interesting. So like, you're talking to people at dinner and what have you, and you're saying, oh, so you're going to be, oh no, I'm getting off in Barcelona. So that was interesting. And then also talking to some of the crew about that, it's quite stressful for them because they're constantly like in welcome aboard mode, and then thank you for cruising, thank you for sailing.
The organization
Yeah.
behind that's got to be pretty tough, I'd
Yes.
imagine.
So they're constantly like onboarding and then closing out. So it is a little bit stressful for the crew from what we gathered talking to some of the crew. But oh my goodness, it was an awesome cruise. And I know, Michael, you said you did a similar or the same itinerary. And I don't know, I would like to actually do that again. I mean, I thought I would actually consider doing that exact itinerary. But we're moving on. I think our next European trip is going to be to Greece.
Yeah.
Nice.
Similar to what I think you and Scotty,
It
similar
was
itinerary.
awesome.
Yeah. So
Now we're gonna go do the one you guys did. We're like
yeah.
swapping.
But we were really good. Frank was great with helping with making sure we had some solid tours set up, and we did a fair share of private tours, and and I guess without sounding too snotty, it's just nice to be able to kind of create your own itinerary.
Yeah.
And, some of the big tours that are, quite large, you're just following, you're just a number kind of thing.
Right.
And it's fine for some attractions, but like for instance, we use Viator for Amalfi Coast. Eugene, our guide, was just top notch, amazing.
He
Lived
pretty much
his
just took you where you wanted to go, right? Like
He
a
did.
private
He
tour.
he basically catered to what would you like to do? And just I'll do whatever you want. And that is the benefit of either a super small group or a private group. I mean, you pay more
Did
money.
you know what you wanted to do, or did he give you some options like, oh, we can do this, we can do that? Like he kind of had some itineraries probably preloaded in his head that
Yeah, so there's some interesting things to share about that. So I many years ago, when I was quite young, had already been to the Amalfi Coast. So in my mind, because it was so long ago, of course, it's much more crowded now, but I really wanted to go back there. And he kind of grinned and he said, "Okay, we'll go back there, Positano." And he's like, "All right, because it's very, very crowded. I mean, it's like just packed elbow to elbow with people like crazy." But he said, "Well, would you allow me to also show you some other villages on the coast that I think you would love? And you've seen Positano and Malfieri. Let's kind of branch out." And so he shared some of his favorite places, Ravello, and anyway, unbelievable. Um, just fantastic tour guide, lived there his whole life. So he knew the area. He knew every bus driver, every private car driver, and he knew the roads like the, back of his hand. I mean, not a great place to go if you're nervous about driving on, I mean, we saw a couple of honeymooners that were in wrecks and you felt bad. She's crying, he's upset. I mean, it's a lot. And unlike Cinque Terre, the Amalfi Coast does not limit people going in there. Say, they have restrictions in Cinque Terre where they'd only let certain size shuttles and certain amounts of people every day. So the only one thing that happened on the way back was that, of course, we booked him not through Royal. We booked him privately, which no regrets. Again, can't say enough about him. Because of this one honeymooner crash, we were delayed and we were like, "Oh no." Because this is
Yeah.
not a Royal, and Royal totes a whole lot about, hey, you stick with our people. We're waiting for you. We're not leaving. Well, also when you're in a European port, as you well know, you have a lot of time. So that was a blessing because, we really got stuck in this. There's, no way out. There was a small fire on the other side where he
Oh
couldn't go
gosh.
around. So we were literally stuck in this traffic jam trying to get around this little
But
accident.
he booked in enough time. I mean, he knew you had to get back, so
He did. And I say to people that are nervous about that, be mindful. I know Frank and Michael know a lot about, the different options as far as if you don't choose to go with Royal, there are other options, but definitely do your homework and make sure that they are highly rated because,
yeah.
there's no private tour guide that is worth his weight of that's going to have you miss your ship. I mean, that
Yeah.
just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But emergencies happen, accidents happen, so it is a little bit of a risk. But luckily, we were back in time and no problems. But yes, he back to our tour with Eugene. He throughout the day, different villages, different restaurants, different churches. I mean, my goodness, the churches we saw, and just along the way, a little gelato here, a little ice, a little Italian ice there. I mean, he just knew all the little spots to go. And
That's awesome.
yeah, so I will definitely say I would 100%
It's
go
a
with
splurge, but it's definitely you spend the time the way you want it.
exactly. And yes, it is a splurge, but at the same time, it's tailored to what you want to see. So you're not
Right.
just like kind of stuck in, well, I really don't want to go there, but the whole group's going, so I don't really have an option. So yes, if you're going to splurge to me, that's the way to do it. Just a private guide or a very, very small group.
Well, the Amalfi Coast sounded wonderful. I mean, I know I had a great day there. One of my other personal favorite stops of the cruise was the Cinque Terre. And, through Frank, he actually told me about a pesto making class that I went and did at one of the little city side villages there. How was your day at the Cinque Terre?
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. And as it turned out, with our past tour guide to Amalfi, and he was excited for us to be able to experience Cinque Terre and said, "You're going to love it. You're going to love it more than Amalfi Coast." And he was
He
right.
really said that?
Yeah, he did. I
Wow.
mean, and it's just even the people that have lived there their whole life, they've seen it change. And with tourism, I mean, it's a great thing. It's bringing a ton of money, as it does to every country. But with that comes the crowding and the
Do you think it's also because, like, to your point, Cinque Terre is a little harder to get to than Amalfi? Like, Amalfi's pretty close to, Naples. It's pretty close. Like, it's more, I guess, located closer to those big towns versus Cinque Terre is, I guess, closer probably to Milan. And you can get there from Florence, but it's not as
Right.
touristy.
I
Or
th I definitely think that could be a factor. But like I said earlier, I also like the fact that they do limit there are no humongous large buses, number 1. I can't even imagine that they would be getting stuck. I mean, it's just so tight. But they also limit small shuttles, so they really are trying to kind of preserve some of the quaintness of these villages. And another thing, that one of the people on the tour with us was a very small, I would say 14 of us, which was fine. That's very doable. Anything above that, for me personally, I just don't recommend that. But one of the ladies was actually from Spain, and she was commenting. She's like, "Oh my gosh, they seem kind of grumpy in some of these villages." And I don't think they're grumpy. They're just living their life, and they're used to tourists. But you could definitely see that it was more preserved, and they're just living their life. You're not like everything is a showy and shops, and they still had their quaint little, coffee shops, and you go in and get a little breakfast sandwich, and of course the churches, but you're just seeing people in Italy live their life. So we absolutely, I wish we would have had more time there. And I wish we would have, our next visit, we'd want to spend time in Capri, but yeah, Cinque Terre, hands down our favorite, are definitely. How about you, and you, Michael, the same?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I didn't even know you could do like shuttles there. I knew you could like take the train, go by boat, or like hike from stop to stop. But yeah, that pesto making class on like the side of the little mountain hill there. It's beautiful.
I mean, just the views. The views are breathtaking. There's not a bad view. I mean, anywhere you are. I mean, yes, the train a lot of people took the train, but our tour guide, she was so cute. She's like, "It's great, but just it can be not dependable."
Yeah.
Like sometimes things happen, and you can be the schedules change, what have you. And it's kind of funny. We walked a ton. Like, oh my gosh, I think my little step counter on my phone like was going to explode, because when you're on the train, you're down already by close to the water. So you can choose not to walk to the top, right? Because you're kind of down, but we started at the top. Well, of course we're going to walk down. So you walk down and you explore and you see the shops, and you got to walk all the way up. So that is definitely a little perk, the train part. But hey, Lord knows we needed the steps, and if you're going to have a gelato, you need to walk back up to the top anyway. So, but yes, it was just outstanding. I mean, your dad was just in
his
heaven.
First time. Yeah.
It was his first time, and he was just blown away. And I'm still glad we spent the time in Amalfi, but he would agree that Cinque Terre was his favorite.
Yep. That I was hoping, because I know that you guys were like, oh, it's a group tour. You were kind of like leaning on whether you were going to still do it, but you did go to the desk. And that's for anyone that's listening and you're like, I just want to make sure I'm not going to be in this big bus. You can go to the excursion desk or call guest services, and they'll be able to look up, or even if you pre-book, you should be able to call Royal, and they'll be able to tell you how many people will be on that tour with you. So it's sometimes they don't give you like the best straightforward answer. I know you kind of got a little side. They gave you a couple different answers, but you knew that it was going to be smaller, less than 20, I think, right?
Correct. So we did cancel one excursion. It was to Provence, and I went up. I don't know that you can call that far ahead, because it's a fluid situation when you're calling ahead to check on how many people they really may not know. But that particular day before we were going on this excursion to Provence, I went to the desk and I said, "Listen, I am a little bit claustrophobic. I don't like being smashed onto a bus. What's your definition of small?" And the gentleman was like, "Well, like 40, 42." I'm like, "Oh yeah, no, that's not small." So, and then the officer was like, "Yeah, she's right. It's not small." And so they happily, and that's one thing about Royal, they happily refunded our money for that particular excursion. I was a little sad about it. I would have liked to have gone to Provence. It's definitely a drive to really get in France. When you come into Marseille, it's not a great port, honestly. There's some churches, there's some cafes. It was not great weather that day. And again, I would have loved to have gone to Provence had we been able to get on a smaller, group
Bus,
smaller shuttle or smaller group tour, but it just wasn't in the cards. So we will adventure that area another time. But so yeah, they were very accommodating, but small is small. Again, to me, 15 tops.
Michael, what did you end up doing in Provence on your day when you were in Marseille?
So that was actually the day we stayed on the ship. So we didn't have anything planned.
Yeah.
We kind of thought about going off and walking to the port area, but we only had, I think, one other full sea day, and it was the first day of the cruise. So we kind of just used
Mhm.
it as a day on the ship.
Yeah, I
Got it.
think that was smart. I mean, like I said, it's fine. It's not. It's lovely. It's just there's not a ton to do, and really, if you're going to go, you want to go to Provence. So that's the.
Yeah.
So that was probably a smart thing, just to kind of recharge the battery, and that's kind of what we did. We got off. We went to a little coffee shop and kind of just wandered around a little bit, and then got back on the ship. But yeah.
Yeah. That sounds like an awesome trip. I'm glad you guys got to do it. I know we've been talking about it. I wasn't sure if you were going to go on it. I know you had a lot of other trips and cruises, but I'm glad that it worked out. And
Yes, it was amazing, and Barcelona was amazing.
yeah,
We did a walking food tour in Barcelona, and
that was
Ooh.
another Viator one. Yeah.
that was another Viator one. We had a great tour guide, Young. She was just loved her country, loved Spain, loved living in Barcelona, and she was just energetic and so excited to share all there was to know about Barcelona. And
And now you
actually,
guys are going back.
we're going back non-cruise. It's going to be a 2.5 week trip to Spain, just by driver and train and a couple of flights. But yes, we will not be in the water. So super excited about that. Loved Barcelona. Like that's just a
It's
whole other.
Michael, what did you think about Barcelona on your cruise?
One of the best meals we had was in Barcelona. I mean, Frank Marina has lived in Barcelona for a little bit. She has family there. She recommended a restaurant for us to go to, and I mean, it was just like tapas style and the best sangria,
Gosh.
literally like a lobster rice dish. Everything we had was so
Yeah,
good.
yeah. No, the food
Yeah,
is
the food, they
amazing.
don't mess around in Spain with the food.
And I felt very safe. Like overall, I felt the people were lovely. I mean, we never,
Yeah.
Michael, I don't know how you were in Rome or if you spent much time wandering around Rome. You do have to be a little careful. Rome gets a little crazy as far as pickpockets and such. But that was really the only time like close to the Vatican and that I was a little like, okay, we need to keep track of our stuff. But
Yeah.
nowhere else in Europe that I feel that way.
Yeah.
Not Cinque
That
Terre.
train station can be a little overwhelming
Correct.
too.
Yes. But really Barcelona, I'm just so excited to be going back.
Well, that sounds like you had a really great time abroad, and I'm excited to hear what you guys think about the land side of the trip and kind of comparing that to. I know it's a very, very different trip, but you get to experience it by land. I think you get to spend more time in Europe and spend more time in Barcelona, which will be really good. So,
So
well,
excited. Yes.
you've got some cruises coming up. I know you've got a couple 3 nights on Utopia just because it's really nice and close from where you live, and you can get down and do a nice weekend trip. But then you also have a 6 night trip on the Celebrity Reflection. You're going to Cozumel, Grand Cayman, and Bimini, which will be really, really nice. I believe that one's end of February.
That is. It's a girlfriend's birthday, and we are going to celebrate on this little trip down to the Caymans. Not a huge Cozumel fan. It's we'll get
I'll
off.
send you a good beach day there. There's some
Okay.
really cool like beach clubs that you can go spend a day all inclusive. And I've heard these are really some really nice options. So we
Okay,
can
that
look
would
at
be
that.
great. Yeah, so it's going to be fun, kind of a little girls' getaway and celebrating our friend's birthday, and looking forward to Cayman Islands. I mean, one of the things I personally get in a rut about is I have my itineraries that I like. You know
You do the
this.
same one most of the time.
I know. I love
St. Martin, St.
St. Martin.
Thomas.
I mean, so unlike just
But Michael, she doesn't even get off at St. Thomas that much anymore.
well, you've
It's a
been.
quick it's a quick
I still have
They
day.
never been to
don't.
St.
They don't.
Thomas.
Yeah,
What, Michael? That's
Yeah.
crazy. All right,
they.
well, we're gonna have to book a cruise for the three of us that goes to St. Thomas, and we're gonna do
We're
St.
just gonna
John for
get
the
off.
day. Like that's
Well, St. John is amazing. The problem, and we were going to get off this last time, but the problem is they just, I don't know, how many people, I know you guys know this, but they charge for these ships to be in port. And that's a factor because I was asking one of the crew members, I was like, gosh, every time it's just like such a short.
but it's also just the distance, right? Because you go 2 days to St. Martin, then you go to St. Thomas, which is very close, and then you have to go
Correct.
all the way back.
It's a hike. There's
It's a hike.
definitely it's a hike to get out to St. Martin.
Yeah,
That's
it's
why
two
it's
full days, two
two
and a
full
half
sea days.
days.
Yeah. I love St. Martin so much so that Dad and I are talking about doing, a separate
Trip, yeah.
Airbnb and just spending, 4 or 5 days on St. Martin. I mean that, prior to some hurricanes, St. Martin, this little island, Dutch and French in the Caribbean, basically, had 4 or 5 Michelin star rated restaurants. Now it has changed some over the years and hurricanes and storms and rebuilding, but I love the people on all of the people in St. Martin. My favorite, of course, is the French side, but I'm trying to broaden my horizons. Something I'm interested also is going out of cruising out of Puerto Rico, because if you cruise out of Puerto Rico, you're now just that much
Yeah.
further out, and you can hit like St.
The problem
Lucia.
is the ships aren't as good, so you're going on
I
maybe some smaller
know.
ships, especially on the
So
Royal side. Celebrity does have some bigger ones that go out of there. But to your point, you can hit St. Lucia, you can
right.
hit
You
some
push a
really
little more southern,
right, right.
so that's, but you're correct. You give up some of my favorite ships, so then I have to really do some soul searching. Like, do I really? That's why I always end up back in St. Martin, because I'm on my favorite ships with my favorite crew, and I'm like one of my favorite places. But no, I'm pushing. I'm pushing a little bit outside the box. So
Let's go back. Yeah, let's go back. So
so
Grand
going to
Cayman, Cozumel,
Cozumel, Grand Cayman, and Bimini, and
Bimini, which would be good.
which is going to be lovely, yeah. And so, and Caymans are nice. I mean, it's pretty pricey if you're not on the ship, and again, different than Europe. When in Europe, you're off the ship so much, right? And so, really, it doesn't affect you as much with the Caymans because you're just spending the day there, and it's not 12 hours, right? But Cayman
You probably
Islands,
find a good like resort for a day there, or a good
yeah.
beach.
Well, Dad and I have been to the Caymans, so we really, really enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to that. And then we have a short little cruise with some friends from Charlotte in January on Utopia.
And you've been on that
Nice.
one. This will be your third time on Utopia.
Love Utopia, yes, and it just boggles my mind. Royal, doing these three and four night wow cruises that are just really going to really Coco Cay. I mean,
Basically nowhere.
I know, going nowhere. You're just cruising to cruise, and I mean, they are just
But it's like a
laughing.
money.
They're laughing all the way to the bank. I
I mean, we
mean,
quoted someone for a suite last night on Utopia for 3 nights, and it's like $9,000. And
yeah,
that was the
Oh
only one
man.
left. I mean, you think of all the other ones, that was literally the only suite left besides Junior Suites. So they're just making so much money off of these.
they are. And when you think that people aren't buying those big suites, think again. They're buying them, and they're
Yeah.
buying all of the extras.
Well,
And
if you have a birthday or something on a weekend, that people are going to book these suites. They're going to splurge for a birthday or a celebration or a reunion or whatever, right?
yeah, I would say 3 nights is probably my least favorite. I think the 4 night is perfect. I really do. 3 nights, I feel like you get on, you unpack, and you're getting off. So it's so quick, but it's a nice little way to recharge the battery. And I think for Dad and our friends from Charlotte, it's like, well, you know what? January's tough. It's like you're just waiting for spring to be around the corner, but it's just not there yet.
Yeah.
So you get a little bit of some sea and maybe some warmer weather, and you get you through to February. So it's just going to be a quick little.
That's why I'm excited about ours, Michael. We're going
Yeah, exactly.
January 3rd. Now, let me ask one more question. I know we're coming up on time, but like, what are you going to do differently? What have you learned about the celebrity thing? Whether that's dropping your bags off because that's something that celebrity lets you do. Put your bags in your room, versus Royal doesn't really let you do that. What are some of those things that you're going to do differently this time now that you've been on Celebrity and now you're going back for the second time, or you may do differently than when the first time you sailed?
Well, I don't think really anything. I mean, it went very smooth. I mean, you can tell that, it's a royal company, what
Yeah.
I'm saying. I mean, as far as the smoothness of, you
Well, are you going
know,
to do specialty dining? Like, are you going to do different specialty dining? Or are you going to go back to the same ones you did?
I'm definitely going to try and do, they don't call it Royal Up, they call it, there's a different term for it, but
Their upgrade program. I
yeah,
don't
their
know what.
upgrade
Yeah.
program. But basically, I will try to go to a retreat room because I just feel like it's worth it. I mean, there's a lot of talk, as you were just mentioning, about these suites on royal ships, versus Celebrity, that are outrageous. And at some point, unless you're going star class and you have the genie, you have to ask yourself, okay, what are you really getting for that money?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to really, if it's just a
Especially on a 3 night.
right, if it's just an all out splurge for some kind of special birthday or anniversary or what have you, fine. But at the end of the day, you need to kind of like go, okay, is this really worth it? For me, the junior suite on the royal end of it has everything I need. I mean, it's
Yeah.
got a beautiful room, beautiful, I usually go for the bump. You know me, like deck 8 on the bump. That's my
Yep.
favorite
Get
spot.
that extra view down the side of the ship.
Extra view, a little bit more room. Love the walk-in closets. I just love how the room is appointed space-wise. Like even compared to the Grand Suite, I don't like the Grand Suite how it kind of cuts off your living room.
Yeah, I'm
Kind
not a big fan of that.
yeah. So really, I just feel like for the value, the Junior Suite in Royal Royal's situation is the best for me. When you talk about celebrity, there's many more options, and there are some rooms that I would like to explore, like the Aqua Class.
Yeah.
So cabins in Aqua Class. But again, right now, this next girl trip coming up, I'm probably going to go for the retreat with a little bit of the butler service. And then they do have, again, some specialty dining, but mostly it's open to everybody. There's just very, very few. The food, as we've spoken before, is definitely an upgrade. There's just no question. I mean, the food is definitely a little bit better. I would say overall the vibe is definitely a little more more luxurious,
Elevated.
a little
Yeah, a little
elevated.
more, yeah.
And that was always the goal. I mean, if you talk to people that are on royal officers, they'll tell you that is our next
That's their
next
premium
notch up.
line. Yeah. It's
Correct.
like it's with Princess and Carnival. Same thing, right, Michael?
Yeah.
They're just trying to make it a little bit of a better experience, but some similar concepts, the ship like similar, similar things. But yeah, that's
And
a good point.
I know we had a Virgin that we had Virgin
We had
Atlantic.
to cancel the Virgin one.
We
yeah.
did.
But we're gonna have to go and look at you and I getting on a celebrity cruise in the next few months.
Definitely want you to get on Celebrity.
Yeah.
I think I can't wait to experience that with you and get your take on it. I mean, I'm a fan. I'm kind of like, I'm also wanting definitely to try Virgin Atlantic at the same time. I've heard lots of mixed about
Virgin. Yeah.
Virgin. I say Virgin Atlantic.
Virgin Atlantic. I think that's like the airline.
That's the
But yeah, you're right.
airplane.
Virgin. Yeah. That's
Yeah. Anyway, so
I know it's just like it seems exciting. It's just different. It's a totally different view on cruising. And spoiler alert, we're gonna have that episode coming out, I think, in either next week or the week after. Another review of Virgin. So we'll get more
Okay.
content on Virgin. But yeah, to your point, it's just a totally different view on cruising. No buffets. All specialty dining is included. The big downside I've really heard, Michael, I don't know if you've heard any other big downsides, but there's only one pool on board. And, it's a big ship. You got almost 3,000 people and one pool. I don't know. That's tough. But I guess they did what they could with the design on there.
Well, we met a couple that in Barcelona that were on that ship, and yes, they were a little bit older than Dad and I, but they were not raving about it. It was not their taste for sure.
Yeah.
And they were familiar with Hideaway, and to this couple, they said that was like Hideaway all the time. That was the vibe for them. So that tells me probably, I mean, anybody can go on any ship at any age, but they were definitely saying that it was a
was a
much
little more
younger vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's real quick. You just were at Hideaway. What, 3 weeks ago?
Yes.
And you did the cabana.
I did.
What'd you
Yes.
think?
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. I think it's a learning curve for, like, they have the DJ and they have the champagne shooter that stands
learning
on
curve.
the bar. A learning curve for Royal in the sense that they're trying to figure out, like, I think you're going to go to Hideaway several times throughout the year, and you're going to have a different experience every time. And what I mean by that is, if you go at spring break and that pool area and that Hideaway area is just slammed with 18 to like 25, it's going to be a different experience.
Yeah.
If you go in the off season, as I did with my sister, and it's kind of like, everybody's in school and there's not a lot of, college kids or high school kids or whatever, it's going to be a different vibe then. And it was. I would say this last time that I went, all ages. I mean, all ages. And the music was different. So I think it's evolving. So rather than learning curve, I'll say it's going to evolve, and kind of they're going to know their niche as each group comes in and know kind of what their target age is.
I mean, they can plan it. They have all the data, right? Like,
well, they do. They kind of do have the demographics, right? Before they sail, they know how many people are and what the age group is. And you can feel that, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right. Like spring break, make it spring break vibe. And then when it's not, then make it.
One of my friends went, and it was kind of a spring break situation, and she did not care for it. And I said, I've been there and I know what you're saying, but I think it just depends on when you go.
Yeah.
So, but we had a great time. We had a cabana, not the one attached to the pool, but the one in the sand that was kind of adjacent to the swim up bar, and it was great. It
looked so nice. You had the guy bringing you drinks and all that all
he
day.
was just super nice cabana attendant. Yeah.
Nice.
So great experience. Highly recommend that.
Well, that sounds like a great lineup of cruises you have coming up this next year. How about Alaska? We're going this next year. You going to come with us?
I know Frankie has been asking me. I think we're getting back from Spain and at the end of May, so I think we're going to definitely try. I've heard nothing but amazing reviews on Alaska. I don't think I've been talked to anybody that didn't love it.
So this would be a first for you too?
This would be a first for us. So I
right.
think we're gonna give it our best try to get on that cruise.
Well, thank you so much, Mom, for coming on the podcast. It was great having you, and hopefully we'll get to have you on again soon.
Thank you for having me. It's always fun.
Well, with that, we're going to wrap up this week's episode. Like we said, we've got a special guest coming back on for, I think, 2 episodes. So we'll have him on for 2 episodes following this one. But thanks again for listening to the Cruise Conversations podcast. If you're interested in booking a cruise, we'd love to work with you. You can text us at 704-313-8556, and we'll pull you pricing. Make sure you get the best rate and add some onboard credit on there for you as well. With that, thank you so much, and we will see you back here next Wednesday.